started fairly recently. We actually previewed it last year, and then it launched in full with clients shortly after Focus last year. So this is relatively new to this audience. The plan is the calendar. And this is kind of the development baby over the last while. We've really been spending a lot of time on this. The idea that we have is that everybody is scheduling at some level. Everybody is looking at pieces of equipment at some level. And most of our clients, the scheduling in the scale of complexity to simplicity is probably in the middle to easier versus aircraft carrier type assembly. You know, we're kind of in that moderate kind of model. In other words, there are tools out there that will look at things like anticipated changeover, allergens, colors, etc., and start optimizing the schedule and putting things in holes where you need things. That's not us. What we're doing is saying, here is the demand that you've got. This is what you need to make. Here is your equipment, and you tell me where you want to put it. We're not trying to think through the resource planning associated with it. There are tools that do that. Plan It Together is a really good one out in the market. And I just went blank on the other one that's been around for years, so it'll come back to me in a minute. But there are tools out there that will optimize a shop floor, move the schedule around, of which we can work with. We're trying not to be that at this point. Instead, what we're doing is giving you a very easy visual view, a visual tool that allows you to manipulate your data and change it around. So let me kind of orient you with the data you're looking at. First off, I happen to still be in my brewery database, and I stay here because it actually gives me ability to talk about different types of batches or types of processes. In the brewing process, they think in terms of brewing and then fermenting and then packaging. Very standard across most breweries. And so I've created in my demo database batch types. So in my scenario, in this scenario, those batches are connected with each other. I do this, and it has an output. I do this, it has an output. I do this, it has an output, and they are connected with each other. And so I've got batch types. There are other clients that will do a mixture, put it in a storage tank, and then they'll fill it to order. It's the same concept. What you're talking about there is, say, fermenting and packaging. So a mixture and then a packaging. Same concepts. So what we've added, first off, is the ability to group batches together in however you want to. We call those batch types. In the past, and we still do support, this concept of a vicinity mix ticket and a vicinity fill ticket. So a mix ticket is a scenario I made where I make a bunch of white paint, I put it in a big holding tank, and it sits there until I need to do something with it, and then I pour out of it. Okay? So the mix ticket is making the white paint. The fill ticket is filling it to order, as an example. We still support that concept. Most likely what's going to happen in the future, certainly not weeks, probably not measured in months, we will probably be bringing that mix and fill as a batch type, and so they kind of become one and the same. So you can still have mix, you can still have fill, but it would be a user-definable experience. You could have a mix or get rid of mix if you don't use that concept. Okay? So these batch types are assigned at the formula level. So every formula can be assigned to a user-definable mix type. So if I process a mixture and I put it into a holding tank and then I convert that to tablets or something like that, that would be a scenario where I might have a mixing and then I have a filling type process and I can identify them independently from each other. The reason I draw this out and talk about it is these filters will allow me to control what data that I'm seeing on my screen. So if I'm only interested in seeing one part of the business or one part of the manufacturing process, I can isolate that or filter that out. So in this case, I'm focused on this process of brewing, the brew house. Or maybe it's mixing for you or whatever. I can scroll backwards and forwards through my calendar, very Outlook calendar look and feel to it. I can drag and drop jobs In effect, all I'm really doing here is changing the dates associated, the start and end dates associated with that batch, but I'm able to do so in a very visual format. I could have easily done it up in Planning Workbench and changed dates there, or on batch tickets and changed dates there. But this has got a more graphical kind of drag and drop, easier to see, I think easier to train kind of model to it. So I can filter, and I can drag and drop and move things around. I can also go and look at different reporting periods or reporting times. So I can go from, say, a month to a week to a day, and I can start drilling into that. And now I can start seeing what am I doing this week for that, in this case, for that batch type. I didn't say this earlier, and I probably should have. I can also filter by pieces of equipment. So if I'm only wanting to see the calendar or the schedule for that mixer, I can see that as well. Or I can see combination of mixers. So I can go and check any one of these, and I would be filtering out the jobs just for that piece of equipment. So the idea here is to give you a tool to see what the system thinks you're going to do and allows you to react to it, changing dates and changing pieces of equipment, things like that.
But it doesn't allow you to convert it. Is that correct?
We're getting there. June.
Oh, okay.
So right now I happen to be on a planned order. If I double click on it, there's my planned order record for that. It's the same data we were seeing in the Planning Workbench. It just brings it up here, and I can manipulate it. I can change it here if I want to. So kind of what I'm seeing people doing, I'm going to talk more about this tool here as we move forward some more, but what I'm seeing people doing is starting with the Planning Workbench to make sure that they've got everything covered, that they've got all of the sales orders covered, that they've got my minimum inventory levels covered, that I've got quantities that make some sense. And then I come into this and figure out how am I going to do it. What resources, what days, how do I get all this accomplished in the time period that I've got to do that? So I think two different sides of the same brain, I think. Now, let me come back to the month for a second. The example I'm going to use might be more specific to a brewery, but the scenario is if I've got a long production time, like this is a fermenter. It takes a long time to make this batch. Starts here and it ends sometime like at the end of the 13th, that time period. See how it snakes around? I find that to be kind of confusing and complicated to see. Honestly, this data wasn't ever intended to be presented this way, but that's the challenge that exists in long run type scenarios. So what we did and what we're doing is moving ourselves to a different type of a view where I can see, I can find my batch. Oh, it's down under fermenter, so it's probably hidden down there. There we go. So what I'm seeing now is pieces of equipment here, and I can drag and drop things to different pieces of equipment.
Can you set like a production factory calendar? So like, that's a 7-day, like say a 5-day week. Right. So that if you had like, say a 7-day job, that it would show you 5 days in say the current week, and then we'd give you Monday, Tuesday the next week.
We do have a shop calendar. I think it's probably a little used, but we do have a shop calendar. Do you know if it's over in 4?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's being used anyplace. We did it initially, and no one ever used it.
Right. So if it's helpful,
there are some different views that are coming up that will allow you to restrict. That will break that schedule across weekends and working days.
Okay.
So we've got the data, we've got the concept there. I mean, we might have some work that we do, get some feedback from you, and interact with the MRP.
Yeah, because does MRP, does it look at infinite capacity?
It does.
Okay, because I would think maybe that's why you're not getting the feedback, is because if it was driving, making you push out, then someone might use it.
That's right. So this view is really designed to be able to show pieces of equipment over time. One of the things that we've been working with internally is dealing with different size restrictions, et cetera, be able to see more time, et cetera, and so on. That's on its way. We're just trying to find the right way we want to do this. This technically is just a hybrid of a calendar. It's just looking at an Outlook calendar a little bit differently. What we really need to be doing is taking this to a Gantt chart, and that's where it's going to go.
Oh, that would be good.
And so we're just trying to figure out what's the right approach to get there and when should we do that, et cetera. But that's something I'm sure Seth will talk about tomorrow in the roundtable. But so that's where we are at this moment. I think it's very functional. I think it could be much better. I think is the point. And so from here, what we're doing is able to move things from different pieces of equipment. So I can move it from one mixer to the next, from one production line to the next. I can slide it in time. I can change the start and end dates again. So if I think I can, and this is fermentation, I can move it. I can change the end date. I can change the start dates, so etc. So I can shorten or contract a job. Okay. Yeah.
So that's just a planning tool based on information that you already have in your batches. Like when you drive in your job, that's not changing your batches. You're not creating that information. It's just a planning tool.
It is changing the batches in the respect that we change the dates, but it's not changing quantities or batch numbers. In your case, for
Or tanks are set up as bins.
oh, okay. Yeah. So it is. No. And
Yeah, so
a great observation that it needs to. Well, you can't actually. You can't. I'll talk it offline with you because the scenario that they've got is that they use bins and inventory to represent a physical vessel, a tank, a fermentation tank. You guys might do something similar, a mixer or whatever. But it sits there for a long time for them, and 15 days, whatever. So it sits there for a while. So what we do in Dynamics is we set up a bin so that you can always see the quantity on hand in that bin. So you can, without having to go anywhere, you can see what the quantity is of that particular, in their case, beer in that bin. The challenge is what I just did, I probably wouldn't do in the middle of a fermentation because I've already transferred the wort into the fermenter. So I probably, in that point, would not be doing this. Because in effect, what I just did is I pumped however many gallons from one tank to the next, and they don't really do that, not often. So, but the point is, I think you bring up a really interesting point, is this is tying to the batch ticket process cell, which is a field on the batch header. And also the fill unit, which is a field on the batch end item, the finished good. So what filling unit am I using and what tank am I using?